What an unbelievable finish to the Wallabies against the Pumas. Australia-Argentina Rugby Championship. What a finish, what a game. Click off the video now if you're looking to avoid the result and come back because Australia get the job done. What an ending. What an ending. What guts and execution for the Wallabies to kick to the corner when they could have taken the draw and ultimately get the win in what actually was a bit of a funny old test match. There was a lot of ugly stuff from both sides, but the ending itself was quite unbelievable. So give me your views down below. What did you make of the game? Most importantly, did you think it was the correct call to go for the corner at the end? Let me know in the comment section, like the video and subscribe to the channel, because in the interests of transparency, to be completely transparent, I honestly thought take the draw. I thought take the draw, get the 2 points on the board in terms of the table. For the time being, you would put yourselves top of the Rugby Championship and you can move on to fight another day, see what happens between the All Blacks and the Springboks. But they went for the corner, they executed, and fair play to them. Angus Bell going over for the winning try late on. And I do feel like it really speaks to the mindset and the belief in this Wallabies team, which I think has been building probably over the last year. If you look back to that victory at Twickenham where they did something similar, it wasn't necessarily kicking for the corner, but they had to win a late kickoff and then they had the skill and execution to score the try in the corner, to steal it at the death with the final play of the game. If you look at the injuries they've dealt with this year, the win against the Lions in that third test, the win in South Africa, a win here where actually, frankly, I think if we're being brutally honest, there's a lot of areas of that game that the Wallabies won't be too pleased with. They were sloppy, 21-7 down at half-time, but the execution, the skill, the bravery, the character, all of that stuff to come back into the game in that second half, and in particular with that play at the end of the game, the decision to go for the corner and then to be able to execute was just awesome from this Wallabies team and is further evidence of the development that we're seeing in them, which I think is a really exciting thing. It's a really exciting thing for rugby in Australia, and I think it's a really exciting thing in particular for this team ahead of the World Cup on home soil for them in a couple of years. So, look, brilliant, brilliant ending. I will do my best to try and sum it up. I feel like it's one of those games that it's quite a difficult one to sum up in some ways. Sometimes I do these videos and I'll be honest, the kind of narrative and what I want to say is really obvious. And then sometimes it feels like a little bit more of a mess and a harder one. And this game is one of those. But I think if we maybe start with the Aussies and how they didn't look great early on. They really built into the game. But I think particularly in the first half, there was a couple of things that stood out to me, which was the Aussies' discipline, and this actually flipped in the second half, didn't it? Particularly if you think about the final plays there, where it was Argentina giving away the penalty close by their own try line. Discipline was an issue, and I thought Argentina's intensity in defence was really, really good, because actually Australia had way more of the ball throughout the game. Even in the first half, that Argentina led 21-7 at half-time. It was Australia that had more of the ball and more of the possession, but they just didn't do all that much with it, which was partly down to, I think, how good Argentina were defensively, and then partly down to the execution from the Wallabies. Lots of possession, lots of territory, and they didn't do too much with it. They weren't particularly able to get to the edge, and Argentina, despite not having much of the ball or much territory, were able to do those things. Like a couple of scores, what was it, the Del Gui try and the Carreras try, like classic Argentina scores. Just brilliant, got to the edge. Some of the skill to work the ball back inside was excellent. Really good tries, but it was almost the opposite from what we were seeing with Australia, who were kind of huffing and puffing and not quite able to get that attacking game going. And in particular for Australia, and this would have been the story of the game had they not scored that late try, I think, was after Nick White scored on 23 minutes for Australia to take the lead for the first time. It was then the Del Gui try 29 minutes, Carreras try 32 minutes, and a Carreras penalty on 36 minutes. It was an absolute disaster from the Wallabies. Having taken the lead for the first time in the game, they lost control. Defensively, they dropped off. Like it was a total disaster. And I thought that might be the story of the game, but oh no, because what a second half. And I suppose one of the interesting things I think in this game, and I wonder if any of you kind of picked this out and what we're thinking they were seeing there, was Australia's attack was so narrow for a lot of the game. Once they got a player advantage and Argentina had players sent to the sin bin or a penalty advantage, we then started to see Australia ship it wider. But they were so narrow. They were going down the blind side. They were taking short pot passes. It actually reminded me of Eddie Jones when he was the Wallabies coach. Now, I know the results were an absolute disaster, but I remember really clearly ahead of the World Cup in 23, it might have even been that weird press conference when he was at the airport with the hat on and was having a go at all the journos. But he said, we want Australia, but he basically said, we want to be a team who pass shorter and run straighter, which is kind of what we saw here. It was a narrow attack, it was direct, it was little passes, the forwards getting through a lot of work, and it finally did get some dents into the Argentinian team. And actually, the Nick White try, that's how it came about in the first half. And it was similar, certainly with the first Suolihi try, where I think that was the one with the offload from Ikitau, wasn't it? Where they'd gone tight, they'd gone tight, they'd gone tight. Ikitau then had to carry a little offload and Suolihi was coming on the line. It was a very tight attack, which worked well. It got them back into the game. And then you had thought that it had all gone to pot with the Juan Cruz Malia penalty with 60 seconds left, Tazano not rolling away, which was a penalty I thought you could have gone either way. Not either way, but I didn't necessarily thought he was given much time to get out the way. They kicked the penalty. And then from the restart, knock-on penalties, Oz go for the corner. Just real, you've got to appreciate, I think, what this Wallabies team and the character that they've shown this year so far. It was awesome. It was such an awesome finish. And despite the issues that are still there, compounding errors, one of those games that I think the ending certainly is going to live long in the memory. So I'll maybe leave it there in terms of my thoughts. I think the top line for me is fair play Australia for going for the corner and for being able to execute. Because as I say, if I'm being totally honest, in the moment I thought, take the draw. The draw was a decent option here. It hasn't been the best of performances. Take the draw, move on, fight another day. But they went for the corner, they executed. And for the time being, at least, they find themselves top of the Rugby Championship, having won 2 of their 3 games. Do you agree with me? It wasn't a great game, was it? But it was compelling at the end. But certainly plenty of errors, drop balls, ill discipline. Kind of took a while to really get going, but the ending was awesome. I'll leave it there for my relatively scrambled thoughts very soon after the full-time whistle. Give me your thoughts down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All Blacks Springboks up next, so a video on that coming your way in a couple of hours. And I'll see you in the next one.